Good morning Year 10, welcome to the second week of the Sign of Fall revision. This week we're going to be focusing our attentions to the relationship between Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. As advised last week, please have a pen and paper with you so that you can make notes as you work throughout the PowerPoint, ready to complete the task at the end. To begin with, to follow the same format as last week, we are beginning with a recall quiz. There are 5 questions based on Watson or Sherlock and Watson's relationship. Simply note down whether your answer is A, B or C. Think through them. At the end, you'll be given a chance to amend your answers and then we'll reveal the answers at the very end. No cheating, try and use this as a chance to test your memory. As explained last week, assessment objectives are one of the most important things with preparing yourselves for your literature essays. We will just spend a minute now just going through AO1, 2 and 3 again to make sure that you're confident in what needs to be included in your essays. AO1 is your understanding of the text, your interpretation of the writer's ideas and your use of quotations. AO2 is your analysis of language, form and structure, making sure you're focusing on the effect that these methods create. Now, as we said on last week's PowerPoint, methods could be anything to do with character, structure, language, so don't worry about having to focus on one particular method. And AO3 is context. This is the relationship between the text and the time in which it was written, but also the time in which it was read. Now, the aim of these PowerPoints is to really condense all the wealth of knowledge that you have down to 5 key points to make your revision easier. Point 1 that you will see on this slide is that Conan Doyle presents the relationship between Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes as being a relationship between 2 opposite characters. One great quote that really exemplifies this is, "He smiled at my vehemence." Dr. Watson explains that when he's absolutely furious and upset, Sherlock Holmes' response is a simple smile. Now, what Conan Doyle does here is juxtaposes the difference between Sherlock and Watson in this quotation so that you can understand that their emotional reactions are very different to situations. One thing to consider is that despite differences, they actually work really well together. What might Doyle have been saying about how society should operate and actually how we should mix with people who are different to us? Now, there's a little point at the bottom that says, remember, Doyle was a social activist and he wanted greater unity between people who were often quite different. Now, in 1890, people would keep to their separate spheres, different classes were separated, men and women would spend a lot of time separate. Maybe through these characters, even though they're very different, maybe Doyle is kind of suggesting that differences are a good thing and they still can work together. Now, if we're really wanting to stretch our answers beyond grade 5s and 6s and we're trying to secure those grade 7s plus, one thing to consider is the idea that Sherlock and Watson are not just characters who show that separate people can mix together and get on well despite differences, but maybe these characters are representing different ideologies being able to mix together. Now, we know that Dr. Watson is emotional and passionate, and in many ways it could be argued that Watson represents romanticism, an idea and a school of thought that was very popular at the time. Sherlock Holmes is very logical and rational. Maybe it could be argued that Sherlock Holmes represents science and technological advancements. Maybe what Doyle is trying to show is that these 2 ideas in society could coexist harmoniously. Maybe suggesting that rather than us having to see changes in society as a bad thing and people fearing them, maybe we should use the 2 ideas to create a better society. Now the second key point that's worth learning about Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes is that their relationship or their partnership is actually a partnership based on respect and admiration. Sherlock and Watson value each other and they work together to better each other. They see the desire to learn and improve oneself as a priority, and education is something that both of them really value. Now, Dr. Watson, when describing his friend Sherlock Holmes, uses a list of positive adjectives, and he does this all the way through. Some of the quotes that are worth learning, or quotations that are worth learning, are the word masterly, genius, extraordinary. By listing them, Doyle is trying to show that Watson's respect and admiration is vast, and he's got a range of brilliant things to say about his friend. But it's not just one-sided. Sherlock Holmes also thinks highly of his friend Dr. Watson. A nice quotation to learn is, "Your presence will be of great service to me." Sherlock Holmes says this to Dr. Watson when Watson asks whether he should stay. Now the adjective great here again shows its great service, how Sherlock Holmes values Watson, and actually it really helps him to have his friend by his side. And even though Sherlock Holmes is this great detective, he still can be helped by other people around him, and he's very confident in saying that to other people. He doesn't want all of the respect, or he doesn't want all of the praise to be just for himself. So both of them respect each other equally and admire the work that they do and the qualities that they bring to this partnership. Now we know that Doyle presented Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson's relationship as being based on respect and admiration, despite them being very different as people. And one thing to consider is why. What was he trying to teach or suggest or encourage people to think about in 1890 society based on this relationship? So there's a couple of key questions here for you to consider. So what might he have been saying? What might he have been saying about partnerships at work? Should we be striving to learn from each other in order to better ourselves? And should we be striving to praise each other to be the best that we can be? Now hopefully the answer to those questions is yes, that Conan Doyle was trying to show us that actually we are better when we work together, learn from each other, and actually praise each other to become the best that we can be. Now, this would offer a nice alternative for the readers in 1890, as opposed to a world of male power and competition that they were quite used to. So instead of people working for their own gain and recognition, which is quite often what people would do in that society, maybe he was actually encouraging us to build better teams and greater unity in a society. Now, one really effective thinking point when you're writing answers, if you're talking about Sherlock and Watson, actually compare the way they work as a team, support each other, praise each other, and do so very effectively. Compare that to somebody like Athene Jones, who works completely alone. Now, if you remember from the novella, Athene Jones tries to take all of the credit for any work that he's done, even though we know he's done it with the help of Sherlock Holmes. He has his work published in the newspaper, again him taking all the praise for it. But also when he arrives at the crime scene, if you remember, he closes the door and leaves some of the other officers outside. Now this is something that would be quite common in society, that there would always be a main person that takes all the praise. Maybe through the characters of Sherlock and Watson, Conan Doyle is showing us a way of us being more supportive of one another, but actually working more effectively by seeing great work as coming from a team as opposed to the work of an individual. Now the fourth great point that you could make in an essay about Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes' relationship is that as a pair, they actually show us two totally different ways of seeing and treating women. When we first meet Mary at the start of the novella, we hear her retell her extraordinary case, all about her father, so far what she knows might have happened. She gives the evidence that she's been collecting. And at the end of this fantastic tale, when she leaves, Dr. Watson's first response is, "What a very attractive woman." Sherlock Holmes immediately responds to that with, "Is she? I did not observe." Now here, again, Conan Doyle has juxtaposed their reaction to meeting this character, to meeting Mary. Now, what we can see is that Watson's first observation about Mary is her appearance. Despite all the fantastic things that she's just told us and the way that she presented herself, Watson still feels like the most important thing to state is that she was beautiful. Very ironically, Sherlock Holmes responds with, "He did not observe." Now, this is ironic because Sherlock Holmes observes everything, as we've already seen when he's talked us through the watch, and when he talks about noticing some dirt on Dr. Watson's shoe. He is incredibly observant. It's one of the skills that he prides himself on having, but yet he did not observe Mary's beauty. Now, he later tells us the things that he has observed about Mary, and that's that she's a model client and that there's a touch of genius about her, both of those being key quotes to learn. It is very clear by having one man that judges a woman based on her appearance and one man judging a woman based on her mind and intelligence and the way that she presents herself as a client or someone to work with, that these two men see women in different ways. Dr. Watson is the traditional man who sees a woman for her beauty and appearance, and Sherlock Holmes is a more modern man who actually sees women as being more than just their appearance, as women with minds who can add great things to society. Now, one thing to consider is maybe Conan Doyle, again, through presenting these two characters with opposite views, is encouraging us to reflect on which way do we feel more comfortable with behaving. Do we want to behave like Dr. Watson, or do we want to behave like Sherlock Holmes? And through these two characters we're given a choice, but we're allowed to see two opposite ways. Now, with regards to the way that both men see Mary, and as we've said, it's in total different ways, they see different things as being important in her, maybe Conan Doyle was actually paving the way for early feminist thinking. Maybe he was trying to encourage society to see beyond the appearance of women and to look at the intelligence they possess. We know, with having Sherlock Holmes as our hero or main protagonist, that we admire many things about him. So maybe by giving him the view that women are more than just their appearance, maybe Conan Doyle is encouraging other people to adopt the same behaviours as Sherlock Holmes. And the fifth and final key point that we'll cover in this PowerPoint is that through the characters Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes, we learn that teamwork is best. Teamwork is better than working alone, and actually opposites within a team bring great balance. When together, we see that both Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson are incredibly resilient. Despite hitting a dead end with Toby, they both simultaneously burst into an uncontrollable fit of laughter. Now, the adverb simultaneously shows that their teamwork is really tight. They almost think together, so at exactly the same time they burst out laughing. Again, showing the brilliance of teamwork, that you can kind of experience something with somebody else, you're not alone in that moment. The adjective uncontrollable actually shows that they're unable to kind of stop this reaction. They are having fun whilst at work, they find the humour, and they actually, rather than becoming sad or disappointed, there's a positive feel that kind of spreads and it becomes almost a fit of laughter. This is very different to how we see Sherlock Holmes when we see him working alone during some challenging times. So when he hits a brick wall, metaphorically, when he's working alone, we see him hit black reactions. We experience him pacing all night in his room. When he's with Dr. Watson, however, he seems to take on the role of being almost someone to look up to, and he doesn't have that negative reaction as often. So actually, we know that Sherlock Holmes talked about earlier, him having Watson by his side is a service that it's a great service to him, and this is one of the reasons why that when together we're less likely to quit and we're less likely to see the negativity because we have each other to keep going. So a nice quotation to learn is that together they have an uncontrollable fit of laughter. Now we've gone through the key 5 points that are worth noting regarding Sherlock and Watson's relationship, and we're just going to quickly go through some of these key context points that are very relevant to the quotations that we've discussed today. As we know, the novella was written in 1890, at a time where technology was advancing at a rapid pace, science was also developing and coming up with new ideas. Not everyone in 1890 was welcoming of the changes. For many people it was quite frightening, and actually we have this difference in thinking in Sherlock and Watson, and what Conan Doyle shows us is that actually these differences need not be feared but can bring people together and actually work well and complement each other. Another key point to note is that in 1890 we know, and you will have covered this in lessons, that many police forces were incredibly corrupt, worked very ineffectively. Police officers were quite notorious for being power hungry, selfish. They wanted glory for crimes that they did not solve and quite often would lie about solving. And one of the issues is that people were, and police officers at the time were, very selfish, and their teamwork and their skills of working in a team were not developed. So maybe by understanding this, or knowing this context point, it helps us understand better why Sherlock and Watson's relationship is incredibly important. And a key question to ask ourselves is, would Sherlock Holmes have been as effective if it were not for Dr. Watson? And I think we can all agree the answer is no. Sherlock needs Watson as much as Watson enjoys being around Sherlock. Another key context point is that feminist movements were gaining momentum across the globe, which helps us understand how they both see women differently. And socialism as an ideal was beginning to grow, and this desire to blur distinctions and mix people together between classes and between genders and many other differences, this idea was growing in popularity. All of these points you would carefully link into your essays when talking about why Conan Doyle chose to present the relationship between Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes in the way that he did. These context points would help you discuss what you think might have been the inspiration for these characters and what you think Doyle might have been trying to say. Now, as said earlier, these PowerPoints are designed to give you the top 5 things or points to learn in order to answer really thoughtful essays on the key characters and key themes throughout the novella. They're not exhaustive, so there are more things that you could say about their relationship, but it's a good starting point. Again, there's a list here of 4 intentions or possible intentions that Doyle had when creating Holmes and Watson's relationship. There are more, so if you have other things to say, by all means say them in your essays, but these are just 4 things to learn for those of you that need a starting point. So one thing Doyle might have intended through this relationship is to challenge stereotypical views and the treatment towards women. Another thing he might have intended was to challenge the divides and differences in society and actually show that rather than having divides between different people, that actually different people should be able to work together to make society better. Another intention might be to criticise the ineffective teamwork that was present in British police departments. Again, we've talked this through. The best teamwork, it's people that work together, that share ideas, that bring out the best in each other, rather than the characters like Athene Jones who operate completely selfishly. And the last intention might be to actually celebrate the brilliance of science and logic and how it can work alongside emotion, romanticism and traditions. So through these characters, Conan Doyle might have been trying to do these 4 things. As we say, there are more, but these are 4 things to get you started. Now that we've gone through the top 5 things to say about Sherlock and Watson, you are ready to complete this task. A typical essay question might look like this. What is the significance of Dr. Watson to the novella Sign of 4? So the first thing you need to do is make a plan. Listing the 5 things that Dr. Watson does throughout this novel. Now we've covered them, we've given you the quotations, and highlighted in red are all the names of methods. All you have to do is have a really strong AO1 drive throughout this essay, stating what you believe Dr. Watson brings to the novella and how Dr. Watson brings out some brilliant ideas through the character Sherlock Holmes as well, how they complement each other, and really stating what his purpose is. Now, minimum expectations for this. As an absolute minimum, it would be 1 paragraph, kind of summarising your understanding of Dr. Watson and his relationship to Sherlock. However, I would like to see at this stage, now we're gearing up for Year 11, that a lot of you are actually trying to answer in essay form. So not just a paragraph summarising your understanding, but actually an essay really explaining that understanding, supporting it with all the AOs. So you've got your understanding of the character, but you've got your quotations, you're analysing them, you're linking it to other characters, and then you're linking your AO3, which is context at the time and Conan Doyle's intentions. Please complete these essays, because it's these essays that your teachers are marking from home. We are then writing lists of things that we either can address when we're back in school or stretch ideas, and we're spending time creating things that you need for when you return, or that we'll later upload onto Teams. So please stick to the deadlines and get these essays complete, because it's for your benefit to do so. Now, just before we reveal the answers, take a look at what you selected earlier for your answers, your questions 1 to 5. Are you still happy with the answers that you originally gave? Is there anything that you want to change? Because on the next slide we will reveal the answers. Good luck. Now, here are the answers to the original recall quiz. Do not worry if you get any wrong. The answers were not all covered in this PowerPoint. Some of them, were suggested, but a lot of this is based on your own memory from the novella. If, however, you did find that you got some of them wrong, I would strongly advise that either you reread the novella or watch it on YouTube, or start researching. There's a wealth of material on YouTube going through these key characters. You know that these characters are potentially going to come up on your exam, so while you've got the benefit now of extra time and being able to use your time how you choose to use it, I strongly suggest that you become experts, especially with regards to Sherlock and Watson, who are our main characters in this novella. The more preparation you do now, the easier your exams will be. So if you did get any wrong here, it's a good signal that extra revision is needed. And that's your work completed for this week on Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. Now, just to make sure you're sticking to deadlines so that we can get our work marked and our next set of lessons planned for you, can you make sure that you write in your diaries that your teacher will want to see work for this PowerPoint on 19th of June, Friday the 19th of June. On Friday the 12th, there will be the drop-in clinic. Now, the drop-in clinics are where you just drop me a message and say, Miss, I need a bit of help. On Friday, I will then call you via Teams and we can go through anything that you're struggling with, whether it's key quotations or how to answer the question. We're there to kind of give you extra support. You will have to let me know that you need this call, because there are 320 something students and I can't call you all. So they're kind of by appointment, but if you do need help, that's the other deadline to kind of write in your diary. That's the time to ask. So you've got a week to kind of try and do it on your own. And if you're hitting brick walls, then let us know and we'll try and help you with that. Good luck everyone, and next week your PowerPoint will be on Mary, the importance of the subplot and linking to other women throughout the novella as well. If you need anything, as always, let us know and we will see you soon. Bye!